Hello, so I wanted to share this project which was about making, believe it or not, a space pod to throw a little Superman doll about this big from a weather balloon that was just on the perimeter of space. And I did this with a wonderful company called RS Components, who were helping create a sort of a little stunt, as it were, for the release of the Superman sequel with Warner Brothers and Mattel. So he ended up coming back down to Earth in this space pod, and the whole thing was basically filmed in 4K, which was pretty nuts back then. But either way, I wanted to make this video because I thought it'd be quite a thing to sort of share something where um, it showed not just the design process that was intentional to try and build the space pod, but something kind of incidental. And so that incidental thing, strangely, was actually making this little thing. And what this is a tool I made to cut off the edges of corrugated cardboard such that you can join it together in a really nice way. And what I realized was that I could also make waterproof prototypes by using this stuff called Correx. And Correx is the stuff that usually for sale signs are made out of. That sort of cheap looking, sort of quite stable, almost indestructible plastic that you get. It's available in all sorts of different colours. But the trouble is, usually you can't glue it together, let alone to itself or anything else. And what I found was that by putting glue gun in these little corrugations or fillets, or fluting rather, then you can actually join it together. And so this tool allowed that to happen. And that was the whole reason that I was able to make a space pod that was really, really durable and really strong and kind of had this funky shape for basically about 10 quid. And the budget was about 500, which is usually nothing. But I guess you could almost argue that did it take 490 to develop that tool? I don't know. But I thought it's a really nice story to show the development process of something intentional and also unintentional as well. So this is kind of starting at the end, which is, you know, him being launched out of the pod, coming back to Earth, all being filmed, and there's the weather balloon that we sent him up in. So it's a huge amount of fun, and I'd always recommend doing projects like this just for a bit of, you never know where it's going to take you. And of course, I met some incredible people along the way. So yeah, the way I designed this pod was a little bit the Superman logo. I thought was a nice motif, but actually the rest of it was pretty functional on trying to sort of house the Superman doll and then build the components that we needed so that basically it could GPS track back to Earth and still have the cameras, the batteries, and I think it even had a Raspberry Pi inside it. So if you're familiar with this phrase called a net, it's basically unfolding things such that you could put it into a sheet form. So I use something in SolidWorks, and who I'm very kindly sponsored by, that have a sheet metal function, and that allowed me to create a net very easily. But you could actually use things like Pepakura, which do this if you're using things like Fusion 360 or 123D or any of these sorts of online CAD programs that are a lot cheaper. So either way, I ended up having the net template. I was cutting them out mostly in blue, but I thought it'd be nice to sort of show that this was an unusual material, so I picked out a different colour. And again, the traditional colours of the Superman emblem I thought was good. So I ended up putting all this stuff together. And as you can see, you end up with some really nice profiles by using the same techniques that I have used with cardboard, working really, really well with the corrugated plastic or Correx. So again, if you're not sure about these, have a look at the links. It's judepullen.com/design modeling, where I get into all this sort of detail of how to build prototypes for having worked at the likes of Lego most recently, but before that, Subaru and also Dyson. So I kind of really get into this sort of prototyping in a fast, slightly pressured situation and environment. So needless to say, we didn't have a long to hack this together. And even though if it's a bit rough and ready, I think it's quite an unusual thing to see a finish with 2 bits of cheap plastic fixed together with glue gun that actually looks pretty strong. And this survived being dropped back down to Earth with a pretty tiny little parachute and took a real bump into a tree and survived it all. So I think it's a really nice thing that you can do. Of course, it stopped it if it was going to get rained on from water getting in, and yeah, certainly took a lot of the shock. So as you can see, here's all the components that we've got, and that was it, basically ready for action. And I kind of feel this is one of those really nice demonstrations of how all these things come together and work really nicely. So, as you can see, one of the nice things is about this platform, Instructables, as well, is that they quite often have little contests and you can enter them in for fun. And it always seems to surprise me that you end up with some nice little prize or acknowledgement for sharing these sorts of things. So, yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Please check out the links below, and that'd be really good. Thanks a lot. Bye.